am 就是那个我们说支撑打运组，对不对？所以它就说，如果中文怎么说呢？就是说，大概没有这个那个 superimposition， 就。How did you translate it in English?
Yes. And the non-superimposition, this is the entrance in non-duality.
然后这个阿萨玛鲁帕它就是没有这个怎么说这个 superimposition， 这个海洋就是这个如果二嘛。然后就是因此不确立，也就是入不二方。So, but it looks like that both Xuanzang and also Kumarajiva, they have a phrase which says, because there is self, so there is also mama.
Okay,
yeah.
But do they also have a phrase which says this, like the opposite, or do they only have the one which says what you just told?
Yeah, and after this they say the opposite.
So they have both?
Yeah, both, yeah.
Okay. Well, that could be a different...
but here, this sentence is, for example, Xuanzang says, 若料无我，也无我所. So if you understand that there is no self, then you see that there is no mama.
Okay. So that's
can you go back to the...
Isn't this the sentence you're referring to?
Maybe we are not completely.
I thought that's...
Can you go back, please? No.
How back do I go?
No, I mean forward. So 1 minute. Yeah, this sentence. Okay. Because this is also negation. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Okay.
所以指的就是前面那一句的我跟我所。所以没有我跟我所，然后
对，意思是这样子，但是我不知道是不是这样对着。She asked if Yaha and I am does it replace the Atma or Mama?
No. This is just to coordinate these two things.
It's just an technical function,
yeah.
right? 这是一种文法方面的关系，它没有代表前面所讲的我所。对，其实中文会翻译，若没有这种若不确立，那就是如不二法，是这个意思。
You could actually express the same idea, almost exactly the same, without using those pronouns.
Yeah.
If you say asamaropa advaya pravisha, you have said the same thing. It's not a big difference. The pronouns are a little bit for emphasis and to clarify. But you can just say asamaropa or asamaropa eva advaya pravisha, and you get, in that case, you even get a similar emphasis. So the function of these pronouns does not go in any way back to the previous sentence. It's all internal to this sentence. But I wanted to point out one thing, since you mentioned that the opposite statement occurs. Actually, if you look at this sentence, it's very easy to get a manuscript variation between a short and a long. So you could get short, long syllable or vowel. So you could have Atma Samaropa Mameti Bhavati. So, and na easily dropped. It can happen.
Is what?
It is easily dropped. It can happen to scribe a mistake. But once you change these two things, you can easily imagine that that text could have existed. So
yeah, but after that there's also this negation, so there are two.
Yes, but you see, what could have happened, for example, is that in the first instance, somebody put a na at one point.
Yeah.
And then somebody thought, oh, this whole sentence is a repetition, and they removed it. You understand what I mean?
Almost.
So let's just imagine that the original sentence was Atma Samaropa Mameti Bhavati, and then again Atma Samaropa Mameti na Bhavati. So that's the original sentence. And somebody...
What is the original? That one here? Or?
The two which I just said.
Oh, okay.
Both of them are the original text. Let's imagine.
Okay.
And then somebody adds a na in the first one. So somebody writes Atma Samaropan Mameti na Bhavati, Atma Samaropan Mameti na Bhavati. The next scribe looks at that and can think.
The next one.
Scribe looks at that and can think, one of these two has to go. This looks like a repetition. And decides not to copy one of them. That kind of thing can happen. So when you have two sentences which are rather similar, if there is a small corruption in the transmission, then one of them can end up going away.
So you're basically saying there might be originally the negative version and the positive version at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody in the course of transmission, one of the two was might have been omitted.
Yeah.
That's what you want to say.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's quite possible.
因为这个鸠摩罗什学证他们的跟这个梵文就是有点不一样了，对，所以他刚才说了这句话就是阿玛说嘛，是怎么说呢？是因为没有确立一个阿玛，所以一个我所也不会出现 ，OK， 然后鸠摩罗什就是跟玄奘他们就说。是因有我故便有我所，然后玄奘也是一样，说因计算的计我故便计我所，对不对？那这句话在梵文里面明明没有，所以就代表是说，可能是原来最早期的一个版本，它那个都会有这个。鸠摩罗什跟玄奘这样的一个表达的方式，但是因为梵文就是听起来都是重复说一样的意思的，所以他后来传承这个经典，有可能是他们就故意省略了一个，有可能，就是这个是常出现的一个事情。
Okay, so since we have read this part, let's just once read this answer, and then we go to the next. Shri Gupta Bodhisattva Aha. Shri Gupta Bodhisattva Aha. Aham Mama iti dvayam etat aham mameti dvayam etat atma asamaropa mama iti na bhavati atma samaropan यः च असमारोपः अयम् अद्वय प्रवेशः यश्चासमारोपोऽयमद्वय प्रवेशः. Okay, now we go to the third answer. There's a typo here. There should be a dot under this T. See? Here there should be a dot. Exactly where I am placing the cursor, there should be a dot. Oops, the cursor went here.
它这有一个错字，下面应该是一个点。
So, Shri, and this should belong. Buddha, Bodhisattva, Aha. Shri Kuto Bodhisattva Aha. So again, it's the same sentence that we found earlier. Kuta means something like a peak. A peak. Kuta means something like a peak. The word Kuta occurs often in Buddhist texts. Ratna Kuta, for example, the peak, jewel peak. Grudra Kuta, the vulture peak. It's the same word as in Grudra Kuta, vulture peak. That one. Shri Kuta, this could be the peak of glory. I think that's probably the sense of it. The peak of glory. And that's the name of Bodhisattva.
这个是吉祥逢菩萨。
是不是得体啊？
嗯。
得体。
等一下。因为。这样。
可是我有个版本叫圣风，它叫得体。
那个不是，那个是风。
因为它这边不是这个白话翻译，它写吉祥逢。
吉祥风，
对，
个风。
对。
罗什是翻译得顶的，那玄奘是翻译圣风。
罗什翻译是得顶，对，然后
得顶圣风。
玄奘是神风，对，然后白话翻译是吉祥风。
白话翻译可能没有就我是大师的那么好吧？
不知道。吉祥。
因为东方前面那个是得手，那一样前面就是指理，就是一样是得，然后后面那个是顶，往山峰的峰也是一样，
对，
可以翻译峰。
然后我看这个经过罗说还有中间一个范文中没有的部分，我发现。There's also part. In between the Chinese versions of 鸠摩罗什还有玄奘，就是不是讲这个不送菩萨的部分，对不对？收不收的部分了，对不对？这个梵文就没有了，它是写这边白话翻译的，这里就是翻译的这个正念不送菩萨和玄奘不送菩萨的颜色原文见下文第6段，听懂吗？因为鸠摩罗什跟跟这个玄奘还有一个这个梵文没有这样的一个菩萨，就叫无顺，听懂吗？无顺菩萨，这个是原文，就是这个梵文本放在第6段，听懂吗？对。
那这个有，那这一句有翻啊。这一句罗什跟玄奘有翻吗？
你说哪一句？
这一句啊。
对，我没有说不翻啊，我是说中间还有一个梵文没有的。
没有的。
但是这个梵文没有的部分是，放在不是不是不是鸠摩罗什学上中间有的梵文没有，这是在梵文本放在第6段，听懂吗？There's an interesting thing. The 6th one is put in Xuanzang and Kumarashiva translation. They put it right after the Atma and Mama section, and the Sanskrit put it into the 6th.
So there's
the order is there's a change in the order.
that suggests that
And
really
Kumarashiva and
both of them.
both of them they have this resonate with one another.
It suggests that really it's a different manuscript.
Yeah.
I think different manuscript tradition.
Yeah, I think so.
But this kind of thing happens a lot in Mahayana sutras.
Yeah.
They can have rather big variations.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but I think we understood the sentence, which is fairly simple. It's exactly like the previous one. Aha is this form from ah, defective verb, and it means someone said. This is our agent, and again this is our agent. And both of them at first vibhakti singular masculine. So this is pretty straightforward, exactly like the previous sentence. Okay, again, very famous set of Buddhist categories, and here we have a similar construction as what we found earlier. So, Sankleshaha, Vyavadanam, Iti, Dvayam, Etat. Sanklesho Vyavadanam, Iti, Dvayam, Etat. So you can recognize that it's what we found earlier, exactly the same thing. Aham, mama, iti, dvayameta. Now we have Sanklesha, Vyavadana, iti, dvayameta. So these are the two things. Dvayam, eta. So eta, dvayam. These are the two things. Iti. So this indicates something like quotation mark. What are the two things? Sanklesha and Vyavadana. Affliction and purification. Vyavadana is really a Buddhist word.
It's what?
A Buddhist word, meaning that you will not find it in this sense in non-Buddhist texts. It's a very specifically Buddhist word. And it has the sense of purification. We find this word very often contrasted with Sanklesha. So these are the two directions that one can be in when one is in samsara. One goes towards affliction, and one goes towards the removal of affliction, which is called Vyavadana. There's a very small thing which I think is somewhat important. There's two words which are partially synonyms, but there's a tendency to use klesha on its own when referring to a specific mental affliction. So for example, if you want to speak of attachment, aversion and ignorance, these are called klesha afflictions. But when you want to refer to the whole process of affliction, it's much more common to speak of samklesha. So it's a matter of convention and usage, but although they're practically synonyms, in actual usage, the tendency is use klesha when referring to specific afflictions or to the mental afflictions, and when talking about the whole process of affliction, one uses some klesha. This you can.
What do you mean by whole process of affliction? I cannot follow.
The whole process means not just referring to what's in the mind now. Does the mind have an attachment, or what does it have? Not like that. That would be klesha. But referring to the whole process through which one has ignorance, and then due to dependent arising, one gets more and more afflictions, which then produce other afflictions, So the process of producing more and more impurities of the mind as opposed to purifying the mind. That is called sanklesha. And it's the opposite of the avadana. So if you check one of the purposes of Buddhist philosophers when they set up a certain system, one of the things they have to do is to show how these two processes of affliction and purification are compatible and can be explained with their own philosophy. So this is a crucial concern of Buddhist thought. But in this case, sanklesha is not referring to a specific affliction of the mind, but to the whole process of affliction, taken as a whole. Yeah?
Can you explain? OK， 反正它这边有一个字叫 sanklesha， 对不对？那 klesha 就是什么烦恼，中文的烦恼，对不对？sanklesha 就是有没有一个专门的中文的翻译？上就是一个前词字，对不对？它是有加强的意思。那他刚刚就解释佛教里面讲 sanklesha 跟 klesha 的差别。klesha 就是说你当下的这种烦恼，如果你是有什么制作一个妄想这样的一个烦恼，对不对？但是sanklesha就是将这个 whole process 它相关的这个过程，就是说当你有一个妄想，它会产生其他的妄想等等，所以就是下降的意思，可以懂吗？所以sanklesha就是说是，对，他这样说了，就这个要去分辨了。然后第二个字叫vadanam，就是那个精进的意思，精进的意思，而且它只有佛教经典在使用的，其他的方文都不出现这样的一个字，这是专门的一个佛学的一个字。Can you explain the etymology perhaps of Yavadana?
It probably is from da, which means to give, oddly enough. But oddly enough, strangely enough, I think it's quite strange. Maybe it means the opposite of giving, so removing.
The opposite of
giving, so removing. But maybe this is a very tentative etymology because it's not used in this sense in outside of a Buddhist context. My guess is that the sense is to remove something. So because there is vi, which can make the meaning of the root the opposite. So vidana, remove.
Separate, right?
Yeah, probably that's.
And ava means what? Along.
It can mean down, but I'm not sure that this is really the relevant meaning there. It could be because avadanam, on the other hand, can mean an exceptional act.
What?
An exceptional activity, an exceptional act.
Not expected.
Exceptional.
And an exceptional activity.
Yeah.
That's what
Avadana. The word avadana has that sense. So, for example, avadana is used to refer to the previous lives of a Buddha. They're called avadana. Or it can refer to a special act on the part of a Buddhist practitioner, not necessarily the Buddha, which is being described. For example, we have the Ashoka Avadana, the Avadana about Ashoka, King Ashoka, and it describes some exceptional feat of Ashoka. And that too is a somewhat Buddhist usage. It's
and it's also from Da to give.
I think so. I think it's probably from it. But there's probably other meanings of Da which might be more befitting. But we would have to, for Avadana itself, we may want to look at commentaries which discuss the limbs of the Buddha Vajana. Because Avadana is one of the limbs of the Buddha Vajana. Just like there is Udana, I think Avadana is included. We have Jataka, Vaipulya, Sutra, Geya, Gatha.
Okay.
So we might want to check how the Buddhist commentators themselves explain that word. And maybe we could look at the Tibetan, how we translate Vyavadana, whether they discuss the etymology. And Edgerton, if I succeed, maybe I can even look at Edgerton here. Let me check. I think I put it here, yes. Let's see what Edgerton has to say. Okay, Vyavadana. Purification, cleansing, but it doesn't tell us much about the etymology itself. Yeah, it from da, but not used in the same meaning.
Where is it?
Here.
Oh, da.
But apparently not used in the same meaning. So that's why I was saying it's a little strange that it comes from da.
Okay.
But you see, there's nothing else really about the purification, etc., but it doesn't elaborate much. So I don't know, maybe we would have to look at commentaries to see whether they discuss this word. I have tried, but I have to say I haven't found very much on this. It's some Buddhist words occasionally, well, not just Buddhist, there is a number of Sanskrit words which are not so easy to understand etymologically, or which can be understood etymologically in many, many different ways. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
那我们刚才讲这个标瓦达，那就是清净的意思，它的这个放混的这个词的来源嘛，就是很难说了。那它的寓根就是搭，就是给予的意思，对不对？但是前面有两个前置词，一个是离，还有阿巴，对不对？离就是在法蒙特那是脱离的意思，所以离跟达连在一起，就是有点像。就给予的相反的意思，那是取消的意思，对不对？取消，所以就是脱离的意思。然后阿巴，但是说有一个叫阿巴达那这样的一个，专门就形容，what did you say? Avadana, what was it? It described what? The Buddha's what?
It can describe the Buddha's previous lives, or generally speaking, some exceptional event.
Avadana 就是 and it's also a Buddhist term. You don't find it in other stuff.
Not that I think it's Buddhist, mostly Buddhist.
然后这个 Avadana 这样的一个词，它是就是形容佛陀虔诚的一些行动行为的，然后它也是表示一种 what was it exceptional
feat. An exceptional act.
OK， 就是一种很精彩的一种行为，对，所以就很难说。清净，好，那反正就这句话，我想说很清楚，对不对？它就是这个就是圣地上加巴达呢，要给他看得懂吗？啊？什么意思？
烦恼跟清净。是恶。
对。这个一它是这个，对不对？So how do you translate it into a smooth English?
affliction and purification. These are the two.
These are. But why is why is it then this Italian singular, right?
Because it goes with dvayam, and dvayam means something like a pair.
A pair, yeah.
So you could say this is
Yeah,
a pair.
yeah, right.
It's a singular word with a dual meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah? Is this? Okay, this is starts being maybe a bit more interesting. Like we get some of the striking features of the answers start emerging. So sanklesha, parijnana, vyavadana, manana, na bhavati. Sanklesha parijnana vyavadana manana na bhavati. So these, again, simple sentences are not much different from what we found earlier. You remember, earlier we had Atma Samaropa Madhipina Bhavati. So this is something similar. So, by thoroughly cognizing or becoming aware of affliction, so by a complete understanding of affliction, due to this, so 50 bhakti singular, of a neuter word, because parijnana is neuter, so sanklesha parijnana, meaning sankleshasya parijnana, 6 vibhakti tat purusha, here is our hetu panchami, 50 bhakti for the reason. So due to this, what happens? Yavadana manana na bhavati. Thinking about purification is not there. So, due to a perfect understanding of affliction, there is no thinking about purification. That's more or less the same.
Can you make more explanation to the word jnana? So
It's from jna, to cognize, to know, to be aware of. Jnana is from is a Kradanta form with lyut.
With what?
Lyut. It's a suffix. And so jnana means knowledge, in the sense of the activity of knowing, the instrument of knowledge, depending on how we understand it. And pari means probably on all sides, so it's slightly emphatic, meaning on all sides, paritaha on all sides.
Okay.
So complete.
And manana, so manmanyate.
Yeah.
And
Two things.
ana.
Manana again, it's a Kradanta suffix.
Isn't it Kradanta?
Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of aspect does it describe?
The activity of man. It's like gamana, of gam.
Okay. So thinking.
Yeah, thinking.
这句话就我想大家都可以看懂，对不对？看得懂吗？当然讲。OK， 那这个句型的结构跟前面那句其实很类似，就是那个他讲的那个叫什么？那个我说是不是
Samaropa。
Samaropa，对，Samaropa就是那个阿斯玛Samaropa，对不对？所以这是其实一样的一个结构，对不对？前面就是不确立自我的意思的Samaropa。那这边是帕拿，看到吗？帕利就是一个前置字，拿就是一个语梗，就是从 prajna 一样的这个拿，对不对？就是 to know。那就是一个自然的，就是说它一个 primary suffix， 就是一个 第一风之次，对不对？让它名字化了，然后它是一个第5个，对不对？这个所以是 Parinat。那 Parin 就是说走遍，所以它就是一个很深入了解的意思，对不对？所以但是深入了解什么？Sanklesa，我们刚刚说是烦恼的这个过程，对不对？很深入了解这个意思。那因为这个从格的意思是因为理由的关系，所以从这个理由，什么样的理由？就是全面的了解所有的这个烦恼的过程，对不对？那这样的Yagavadana清净Manana慢慢压着就是什么？就是 to think， 对不对？我们学过，对不对？就是to think， 思考、行思，对不对？所以这种有关清净的这个行识，那帕巴吉就不会出现，不会